On the night of October 20th, 2025, the eastern Pacific Ocean was swallowed by pitch-black darkness. Heavy waves, columns of water higher than 2 meters, relentlessly pounded the hull of the destroyer USS Alburg of the United States Navy. The ship was on patrol for the Intercontinental Drug Smuggling Operation Code, named Black Current 7. The sky was thick with clouds, no moon, no stars, only the faint light from the navigation lamps shining onto the water, reflecting each wave's whitecap. Everything seemed calm, but in the radar room, a sharp beep suddenly broke the silence. Lieutenant Malin, the radar officer, leaned close to the screen. A small signal appeared in the southwest corner, over 40 nautical miles away from the ship. It transmitted no AIS, automatic identification system, no travel data, just a slow, meandering track. The speed was only 11 knots per hour, too slow for a commercial vessel, but too steady for a fishing boat. Malin frowned, adjusted the scan lever, and opened the internal communication channel. Bridge, this is Combat Center. We have an unidentified target. Bearing 223, distance 46 nautical miles, no AIS, could be a code target. From the command room, Captain James Halloran's voice rang out decisively. Monitor, deploy Scan Eagle. Class UAV. Command code Intercept Level 1. A small UAV, like a swift bird launched from the ship's deck, its engine whining in the dark. It quickly reached an altitude of 2,000 meters and began transmitting infrared imagery back to the command center. The screen displayed the outline of a steel-hulled vessel about 40 meters long, flying a Belize flag but with no clear name. Deck lights were off, no navigation signal. Under the infrared light, 2 small moving bright spots, personnel, and clearly they were carrying weapons. Near the cabin, a long cylindrical object resembled a grenade launcher barrel. Malin looked up at the captain and quickly said, "Not a fishing boat, sir. They have weapons. High probability of armed smuggling." Halloran nodded, activated Code Bravo, preparing the MH-60R helicopter for combat alert. On the deck, the weapons technical team hastily checked the GAU-17 cannon, loaded the ammunition belt, and started the Seahawk engine. The rotor noise echoed off the hull, blending with the sound of the waves to create a tension like a war drum. The UAV overhead continued to transmit data. On the stern of the suspicious ship, small stacked containers, many wrapped in black tape, the familiar sign of containers holding compressed cocaine. Malin reported, "Data confirms possible contraband transport. Recommend reporting to Southcom." The satellite signal was immediately transmitted back to the South American Command Center. Just minutes later, a reply was sent back. Cross-reference with satellite imagery from 3 weeks ago. This vessel, fake identity Ma Azun, was previously seen near the Peruvian coast, where the Queen Cartel is highly active. Probability of containing over $60 million worth of narcotics, 92%. Captain Halloran gave a concise order: activate Operation Black Current Phase 1, shadow tracking. 2 MQ-9 Reaper UAVs were ordered to take off from Comalapa Air Base in El Salvador, heading straight for the target coordinates. Each was equipped with an MX-20 infrared sensor, a 4K camera, and 2 Hellfire missiles. Simultaneously, on the Alburg, the AN/SPY-1D surface radar expanded its surveillance range to 100 nautical miles. The ISR data system linked the UAVs, radar, satellite, and sonar into a single network. On the central screen, the target was clearly marked with a red dot, while green lines indicated the U.S. ship's safe zone. The Poseidon Logic Tactical Assistance AI showed the target's likelihood of being involved in arms smuggling operations was up to 82%. Halloran looked around, his voice serious. "Issue a warning over international frequency. If no response in 2 minutes, proceed with Intercept Phase 1. The automated female voice sounded over the international radio waves in 3 languages. Unidentified vessel flying the Belize flag. You are within an international surveillance zone. Stop engines for administrative inspection. 1 minute passed, no response. 2 minutes passed. The radar reported the target suddenly increased speed to 27 knots per hour, changing course southeast. Simultaneously, the Reaper's infrared camera detected a flash of light from the ship's deck. 12.7mm rounds were fired directly at the circling Seahawk helicopter. In the dark night, the red tracers zipped by, tearing across the sky. The Seahawk pilot executed an emergency maneuver, rapidly dropping altitude, circling to avoid the rounds, the warning system blaring continuously. Immediately after, the pilot returned fire. Squeezing the trigger of the GAU-17, 3 bursts of ammunition poured onto the port side of the Ma Azun. Flames erupted. White smoke tore through the dark night. 2 figures fell. From the command room, Halloran said coldly, "Target confirmed, armed, hostile act. Authority to use Bravo-level firepower approved. Engage authorized." In the sky, Reaper 2 locked its laser onto the ship's stern. The Alburg adjusted course parallel, maintaining a distance of 1,500 meters. The optimal position for the Mark 45 naval gun. The Link 16 secure communication system transmitted the order, Black Current Phase 1 active intercept. The Mark 45 cannon loaded. The first explosion reverberated, the shell's trajectory cutting through the air, hitting the opposing ship's hull. A flash of light erupted like lightning. The explosion spread, creating intense smoke and fire. A secondary explosion occurred from within. Auxiliary fuel ignited, spreading the fire quickly. The Ma Azun listed heavily to starboard. Several people jumped into the sea. The Reaper recorded at least 4 survivors adrift. Halloran ordered, "Cease fire, stop all ordnance. Deploy the SEAL team. Secure evidence. Maintain 800 meters distance. Risk of secondary explosion." The Seahawk helicopter lowered, dropping lines. The dark figures of the SEAL Special Forces plunged into the sea, slicing through the waves and climbing onto the burning ship's hull. Thick smoke, flames reflecting off their fire-resistant armor. Over the radio, the voice of Alpha Team Leader rang out, "We are in the main deck area." Hearing small explosions in the cargo hold, possible cocaine containers catching fire. The Reaper shone its infrared camera, recording the cracked hull, temperatures over 400 degrees. A SEAL knelt to examine a wounded man lying next to a fuel barrel. He whispered in Spanish, "No me, mate. Somos transport. Don't kill me. We are just transporters." Halloran spoke over the radio. "Capture alive. Prioritize data seizure. Check the cockpit. Search for encryption devices." After 40 minutes of securing the area, the Special Forces team recovered a military-grade satellite transmission device manufactured in Russia, along with 3 SSD hard drives mounted to the control panel. Preliminary analysis showed the files contained coordinates, communication codes, encrypted with the AES-256 algorithm. The data was sent back to Southcom. Within 10 minutes, intelligence experts confirmed. This is not merely smuggling, but a transport network combining the Cartel Densu and a group of mercenaries in Venezuela. But the extracted coordinates only point to a base near Nicaragua, believed to be the main transit and money laundering point. Halloran was silent for a few moments, his eyes fixed on the digital map. "If the data is correct," he said slowly, "this is just the prelude. We will end it tonight." He turned to the tactical officer, preparing for Phase 2, contact Poseidon Recon, confirmed the target coordinates on shore. New code name, Black Current Phase 2, shoreline strike. The command room fell silent. Outside, the sea still roared, but within each sailor, the real storm had just begun. Operation Black Current was no longer a simple pursuit of criminals. It was a battle. A preemptive strike against a clandestine armed base operating in sovereign territory. The line between crime and war had vanished. And as Captain Halloran gripped the rail, ordering the deployment of the attack formation, he knew that from this moment on, the sea would no longer be silent. Next phase, shoreline strike, Dead Gulf base. Over the dark sea, the USS Alburg silently drifted in the vast expanse. Below deck, the screens were still glowing in the cold blue light, displaying hundreds of overlapping tactical data. Captain Halloran stood tall, gripping a cup of unsipped coffee, his eyes glued to the digital map. The coordinates of the base near the Nicaraguan coast were clearly displayed, about 230 nautical miles southeast of the ship's current position. A small sea area was marked in red next to the coded line, Bahia Muerta, Dead Gulf. According to the newly decoded data, this was where the Cartel Densu coordinated with old mercenary groups to build a cocaine and weapons transit point for the entire Pacific route. Halloran lowered his voice. "This is not just a logistics base. This is the headquarters of this network." He looked at Tactical Officer O'Connor and ordered, Activate Black Current Phase 2. Report to Southcom, Command Alpha Strike. Prepare Reaper UAV-2, head straight for the Dead Gulf. O'Connor nodded, sending the command sequence via satellite channel. Less than 3 minutes later, a green light flashed on the control panel. The strike order was approved. The authority to use precision firepower was officially activated. On the deck, the sea wind blew fiercely, swirling columns of white mist. 2 MH-60 Seahawk helicopters started their engines. The rotor sound echoed throughout the hull, vibrating with a low, deep rhythm. A Reaper from Comalapa Base was also gaining altitude, locking onto the target coordinates. The satellite imagery system began scanning the Nicaraguan coastal area. Below, a small bay hidden among rocky mountains and a makeshift fuel depot with corrugated iron roofs glimmered under the faint moonlight. Next to it were dozens of speedboats anchored along the pier. Abnormally high infrared temperatures indicated intense human activity, confirming the base was operational. Halloran stood motionless, looking through the magnified lens. His voice filled with tension mixed with determination. We don't have much time. If they know the Ma Azun has been eliminated, all evidence will be wiped out within a few hours. The Reaper maintained surveillance at an altitude of 6,000 meters, not firing until final confirmation. The remaining units were ready for the armed reconnaissance phase. O'Connor replied, "Yes, sir. Poseidon is adjusting the AESA phased array radar. Signal is clear. All systems are ready." When the ship's clock struck 2:15, the infrared signal reported detecting unusual movement in the port area. 2 speedboats left the pier, heading out to sea, moving straight west, toward the Alburg. Halloran ordered, deploy Seahawk 1 to intercept from a distance. Warning, do not enter the safe zone. If they continue to advance, authorize warning fire. The Seahawk took off, its propellers slicing through the air with a shriek. Below the surface, 2 bright streaks from the boat engines were clearly reflected. Through the infrared sight, the Seahawk pilot issued a warning, but the opposing boats did not stop, instead speeding up and turning sharply. Immediately, the GAU-17 cannon opened fire, the sound of rounds impacting the water, sending white splashes flying. One boat was hit and exploded, flames erupting. The other changed course, running straight into the southern fog bank, disappearing from the radar. Halloran watched, then said slowly, "They know. We have no other choice." He ordered, "Open all fire control systems. Execute Phase 2 shoreline strike. Target, Dead Gulf Base. Prioritize eliminating fuel and weapons depots. Minimize civilian casualties." O'Connor confirmed, his voice raspy, "Rule Alpha has been applied. Full authority to fire when the target lock is stable." The Reaper descended to 3,000 meters, its optical camera sweeping over the shed roofs. On the screen, technicians clearly saw every detail: power grids, storage tanks, even trucks parked in the area. The laser targeting system projected a dot onto the roof of the fuel depot. 2 Hellfire missiles were loaded, their GPS seekers activated. In the command room, Halloran checked the clock, confirmed, target coordinates are accurate within 5 meters. Authorize firing. The words were barely out before the screen lightly shook. 2 long streaks of light launched, tearing through the night sky like lightning. Just 12 seconds later, the first explosion occurred. The corrugated iron roof of the ammo depot flew open. A secondary shell exploded in a chain reaction, creating a domino effect. Flames shot up dozens of meters, illuminating the entire bay area. 3 seconds later, the second one hit the fuel tank. A massive white fireball spread, consuming the entire pier area. From a distance, Poseidon reported via satellite, target depot destroyed, widespread fire. On the Alburg's deck, all was silent, only the whistling wind and the regular sound of the radar sweep. Halloran sighed softly, his voice low. "Continue monitoring, confirm damage, and prepare SEAL Team Bravo for the landing phase." For the next 10 minutes, the Reaper UAV circled the area, recording images of moving heat signatures. Several individuals were attempting to flee in life rafts. Below deck, the sensor system detected small explosions, indicating the auxiliary fuel depot might ignite. Halloran didn't wait. Reaper deployed GBU-12, 2 rounds aimed directly at the command area. A Roger sounded. 2 laser-guided bombs fell along the precise trajectory. The screen flashed. The entire command building was split in an instant. A column of black smoke billowed up, spreading miles away. Under the infrared light, the entire base was now just a pile of scorching hot ash. Southcom confirmed via satellite, all main targets neutralized. No radio signals, no movement activity. Halloran ordered, switch to recovery phase. SEAL Team Bravo, prepare to land. Prioritize seizing evidence. Check the wreckage. Confirm mission complete. 3 rigid Raider speedboats were lowered into the sea, carrying 18 Special Forces soldiers heading straight for the smoking shore. The water reflected the firelight, and every gust of wind carried the burnt smell of oil and metal. From above, the Reaper shone a laser to guide the boats, ensuring they landed in the safe zone. As they approached the ruined pier, smoke still swirled like a thick curtain. A SEAL soldier spoke over the radio. Area is hot. Visibility 20 meters. No subjects seen alive. Halloran monitored the screen, his voice even and precise. Continue deeper, search every warehouse. If electronic devices are found, prioritize seizure. In the infrared lens, the SEAL teams moved in a V formation. They quietly searched through the debris, finding dozens of charred wooden crates containing a white powder, suspected to be unrefined cocaine. One soldier whispered, "This is a cocaine processing warehouse. The chemical smell is still strong." Another group found a steel container half buried under the sand, inside containing weapons, parts, and electronic components, evidence of high-level technical expertise. Halloran mused, "This is a base disguised as smuggling. It's actually a weapons transit station. They are more advanced than we thought." On the sky, dawn began to break. The first rays of light shone down on the oil-stained sea, and the dead Gulf base was now just a patch of scorching red ash. Halloran removed his headset and said softly, "Phase 2 complete. But this operation is not over. We will find out who is behind Cartel Densu. This is just the beginning." He looked up at the horizon, where the first light of the new day was faintly visible. On the sea, the engine sounds of the Special Forces boats still echoed, mixed with the sea wind. In the control room, all was silent. No one spoke. They knew that when the sun rose, the first news of the mysterious explosion off the Nicaraguan coast would spread across the world. But those on the USS Alburg knew better than anyone. Justice sometimes has to be carried out in the dark. Following that, decode secret Orion Cell. As the morning light softened over the sea, the entire area of the dead Gulf appeared in a desolate scene. The smell of burnt oil, black smoke still lingered on the water, and charred iron pillars jutted out like the skeleton of a metal monster that had been burned alive. The SEAL Bravo Special Forces team was moving slowly through the still steaming ruins, checking every compartment and pile of rubble. Each step crunched on fragmented metal. They wore helmet-mounted optical cameras, all images transmitted directly back to the Alburg destroyer. In the command room, Captain Halloran and Tactical Officer O'Connor watched every frame. Next to them, a signals analyst from Southcom was decoding the data in the 3 SSD drives recovered from the Ma Azun vessel. The entire ship seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would be revealed from the ashes. The first report from the scene came over the radio. Alpha 1 reports the fuel depot area is completely destroyed. Found many crushed wooden crates containing white powder. Suspected unrefined cocaine. The main command area has collapsed. No survivors. A minute later, Bravo broke in. Found the burned-out electrical room. A server exploded, but there are still some intact hard drives. Halloran immediately ordered, "Seize all remaining equipment. Priority 1. Be careful of booby traps on the ground." Smoke was still thick. A SEAL used a shovel to cool down a hot metal section, revealing a small container. Inside was a military-grade satellite transmission device labeled Zero Defense, originating from Eastern Europe. O'Connor saw it on the screen and softly said, "Not something a regular smuggling gang can buy. This is specialized equipment." Halloran replied, "They have backing, perhaps a private arms dealer, or worse, a dark government." He requested a direct connection to Southcom. After just a few minutes, the encrypted line was opened. The voice of the female analytical agent sounded over the loudspeaker. "The data in the first SSD drive has been decoded in the header section. There's a cryptocurrency transaction list worth over $180 million over the past 4 months. The organizational wallet address has the code Lumen Holdings, a shell for a logistics company in Venezuela previously suspected of supporting Cartel Densu." Halloran nodded, his eyes sharpening. So, it's as predicted. The Ma Azun was just a small piece of the entire network. O'Connor sighed. It seems Lumen isn't just transporting narcotics. Those hard drives contain data on the routes of shipments of materials that could be used for military purposes. A young officer in the room whispered, "So they are smuggling weapons components too." Halloran answered without hesitation. Exactly. This is no longer just drug crime. This is direct interference with regional security. He paused for a moment and then spoke clearly, word by word. Prepare the report for Joint Command. Request upgrading the operation to Black Current Phase 3. We will hunt down the route. While the command on the ship was changing plans, the SEAL team continued to search deeper on the ground. One of the soldiers found a semi-underground tunnel entrance beneath the ammo depot, covered by a charred steel plate. They opened the lid, and the flashlight beam shone down, revealing a reinforced room. Inside were control panels, a black screen, and a damaged laptop. But the most striking feature was the symbol printed on the wall, a silver eye surrounded by encoded characters. Bravo team leader called back, found an unidentified symbol, taking a photo and sending it. Just seconds later, the recognition software at Southcom responded. That symbol previously appeared in the files of the Orion Cell organization, a secret network believed to specialize in providing encryption equipment and weapons to paramilitary groups in South America. Halloran listened to the report, stunned. He turned to O'Connor, his voice hoarse. Orion Cell was believed to have dissolved in 2022. Now it turns out they just changed their mode of operation, and we have just destroyed one of their bases. He said gravely, "Good. Then we hit the right target." O'Connor asked, "Sir, do you want to continue the pursuit?" According to the data, they have at least 3 more transit points in Honduras, Guatemala, and offshore Panama. Halloran nodded. "We will not stop when the sea is still plagued by armed criminals." Then he turned on the internal radio. All hands prepare to return to operational mode. We continue Black Current Phase 3. New objective, track and eliminate the entire Orion network. On the ship's deck, the crew began to move smoothly. Weapon elevators brought up lines of Tomahawk cruise missiles and long-range artillery rounds to the deck. The technical team checked the radar, cooled the guidance systems, preparing for potential engagement. The sky was clearer now, the sunlight piercing through the smoke, reflecting off the oil-stained water. In the distance, the SEAL boats began to return. When they docked, Halloran was personally present on the deck to greet them. The soldiers were drenched in sweat, their armor stained with sea salt, but their eyes were bright. One of them, Sergeant Vega, handed the captain a USB stick wrapped in fire-resistant plastic, saying, "Found this in the server room basement, looks like a system communication backup." Halloran took it, nodding. "Excellent. You just gave me the key to the next door." Below deck, the data analysis team worked feverishly. When the USB was plugged into the specialized machine, hundreds of lines of code appeared. A file titled TR Sigma caught their attention. After 10 minutes of decoding, the cell's communication route map appeared, red arrows connecting from Caracas to Panama and then across the Pacific all the way to the California coast. Each point was linked to satellite infrastructure symbols and transmission code names. An analysis officer exclaimed, "My God, they are using civilian satellites to disguise the data transmission. This is a global network." Halloran stared at the map and said quietly, "They are not just smuggling goods, they are running an entire logistics system for the underworld." Outside, the wind began to pick up. The ship gently vibrated with the waves. Halloran leaned on the railing, looking out. He knew that what they had found was only the tip of the iceberg. Every time one base was eliminated, another one would emerge. But what silenced him was the feeling that behind Cartel Densu, behind Orion Cell, there was a larger force pulling the strings, a hand controlling the flow of both technology, crime, and war. He turned back to O'Connor. "We need more than just firepower. We need intelligence. Prepare to contact naval intelligence. I want all data transferred directly to Washington within 1 hour." In the sky, the Reaper UAV still circled, its camera recording the wide sea. The last streaks of black smoke faded, revealing the scorched white sand of the coastline. In the distance, flocks of seabirds returned, diving toward the tranquil water as if the ocean was slowly regaining its breath. But on the Alburg's deck, no one allowed themselves to relax. Halloran understood that peace was only temporary. like the calm before a bigger storm. He said softly to himself, his voice low but firm, "The sea is never silent, and neither are we." At the stern, the American flag fluttered in the wind. Against the early morning sky, the destroyer continued to head east, where the satellite signal from TR Sigma was leading them to the next target, another secret base deep in the waters of Honduras. On the tactical screen, the text flashed red. Black Current 7. Phase 3 initiated. Subsequently, the underground army in the Caribbean Sea. The Caribbean Sea at noon possessed a deadly beauty. The sunlight shone on the turquoise water, reflecting thousands of glittering rays like fragments of glass. But beneath that tranquil surface, an underground storm was waiting to erupt. The destroyer USS Alburg silently glided over the water, heading straight for southern Honduras, where the TR Sigma signal led. Satellite data indicated a shallow water area with unusual terrain, less than 200 meters deep but with a high sonar return density, a typical sign of an artificial underground tunnel. No one on the ship spoke it, but everyone understood. This could be the secret center of the Orion Cell organization, where they stored hundreds of tons of contraband and stolen military technology. In the command room, dim light covered Captain James Halloran's grim face. He looked at the digital map, where a red elliptical area was marked with a 10 nautical mile radius, with the note below, possible subsurface space. His voice was hoarse. If this is indeed an underground base, we are facing an enemy with technological capabilities that no cartel has ever achieved. Tactical Officer O'Connor stood by, pointing at the sonar screen. "Sir, active sonar detected the sound of a small electric motor at a depth of 160 meters, steady speed, could be a mini-submarine or a deep-water drone." Halloran frowned. "Orion has an entire submarine fleet. Impossible." O'Connor replied concisely, "Not just possible, but certain. They have transitioned from smuggling to a hybrid warfare model." Simultaneously, below deck, the sonar technical team increased the sweep intensity. The electronic sound resonated like a steady drumbeat. A series of strange signals appeared interspersed between the echoes. Lieutenant Technician Marshall whispered, "That's not a natural engine sound. They are transmitting Morse code using low-frequency sonar waves." The entire command room was silent for a few seconds. Halloran stepped closer, looking at the waveform display, and said slowly, "Decode immediately." After 3 cycles, the character sequence appeared. PNOTE active. "Intrusion detected. Prepare for engagement." O'Connor looked at Halloran, his face pale. "They know we are here." Halloran immediately turned to the radio. All hands switched to general quarters. "Close all lower deck hatches. Activate active sonar. Deploy MH-60R2 with Mark 54 torpedoes. Order the Reaper to circle low-level reconnaissance." The alarm sirens screamed through the steel corridors. Sailors rushed to their stations. The Phalanx automated defense system began rotating its barrel, ready to fire. Underwater, sonar registered at least 3 sound sources moving towards the ship. The speed increased rapidly, about 40 knots per hour. Halloran tightly gripped the microphone. "No doubt about it. Underwater target. The enemy is approaching. Delta combat level. Engage." From the ship's deck, the MH-60R helicopter took off, carrying 2 Mark 54 torpedoes. The rotor noise roared, cutting across the sound of the waves. At a depth of 150 meters, the optical cameras of the deep-water UAV recorded blurry images, 3 long cylindrical objects covered in sound-absorbing ceramic, moving in a triangle formation. Each was over 10 meters long, equipped with 2 small launch tubes. O'Connor shouted, "Piranha-class mini-subs. Russian-made. Orion has this technology." Halloran clenched his fist. "If they launch torpedoes first, we have no chance to react. Order fire immediately when the Reaper confirms the position." The Reaper circled high overhead. The AESA phased array radar continuously scanned the sea surface. Coordinates were locked. O'Connor yelled, "Target Alpha, distance 1.6 nautical miles, depth 130 meters. Bravo 2 nautical miles away. Charlie is changing course." Halloran commanded, "Seahawk, drop sonar buoys. Lock Alpha and Bravo. Fire in sequence." A Roger rang out. 2 Mark 54 torpedoes left the helicopter's belly, leaving 2 white wakes on the sea surface. They plunged deep, automatically tracking the targets. In the command room, the sonar sound echoed rapidly. The first explosion occurred. A deep boom reverberated beneath the sea. Alpha destroyed. Marshall screamed. A second explosion followed, then silence. But before anyone could celebrate, the radar screen went red. Charlie is heading straight for the ship. Speed 55 knots. Halloran shouted. Emergency turn 20 degrees to starboard. Deploy Nixie decoys. The ship leaned heavily, water flooding the forward deck. 2 decoy devices were launched, creating thick acoustic interference. For a few seconds, everyone seemed to hold their breath. Then, a terrifying explosion sounded from the stern. A torpedo detonated less than 50 meters from the ship's tail, the impact pressure causing the entire vessel to shake violently. Several sailors were thrown down, the fire alarm blaring through the corridors. O'Connor yelled over the siren, stern slightly affected. Auxiliary sonar system temporarily offline, but the main hull is safe. Halloran gritted his teeth. Good. They want to fight guerrilla warfare underwater. We'll show them what the real Navy is. All firepower ready. Over the next 10 minutes, the battle beneath the sea unfolded in the dark. Deep, muffled explosions echoed through the water. The Reaper continuously sent coordinates, and the Seahawk helicopter circled, dropping sonar buoys. Finally, target Charlie was hit. The sonar screen gradually quieted. Only a faint buzzing interference remained. The entire command room broke out in sighs of relief. Halloran closed his eyes, his voice hoarse. Confirm all underwater targets destroyed. Stern status. The engineer reported. 1 auxiliary valve damaged, but the main engine is stable. He nodded and ordered. Maintain course, proceed to the core area. Everything according to plan. An hour later, the Alburg approached the central area suspected of being the underground base. Beneath the water, sonar displayed a dome-shaped structure, over 300 meters in diameter, with a tunnel extending out to sea. A technician exclaimed, "My God, they built an entire underground infrastructure." Halloran stared. "We cannot let this exist." He opened the communication channel to Southcom, requesting authorization for Alpha-level strategic firepower, using Tomahawk laser guidance. After a few seconds of silence, the voice of the general commander in Panama came over the loudspeaker. Request approved. Rose confirms green light. The atmosphere in the command room became thick. Halloran turned back, his voice firm. Prepare to launch Tomahawk. Target, Orion underground base. Firing angle 27 degrees, range 35 kilometers. From the ship's deck, the launch tube cover opened. Mechanical sounds echoed. The massive missiles ascended, white mist swirling around them. In that moment, Halloran lowered his voice, almost whispering, "This is the end for those who dared to turn the sea into a hideout." He ordered, "Fire." 2 Tomahawks launched, splitting the sky, leaving long white trails of smoke. Everyone watched the screens. 17 seconds later, the first impact. Shockwaves spread like an earthquake, seawater splashing dozens of meters high. The second explosion overlapped, creating a giant fireball beneath the sea. The dome structure completely collapsed. The entire area shook. On sonar, the signal return from the base completely vanished. Marshall shouted, "No more returns. Base completely destroyed." Halloran nodded slightly, looking out the porthole, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "Finished. But it's not over. We've just kicked a hornet's nest." Southcom confirmed via satellite, entire underground facility destroyed, no biosignals remaining. But a final data stream from the satellite stunned everyone. In the last few seconds before the base exploded, Orion's automated system sent an encrypted package out. The text displayed coldly, "Note 2 online." O'Connor looked at Halloran, his voice slightly trembling. "That means there's another base." Halloran replied, his eyes gazing out at the blazing ocean. "Correct. And it might be 10 times stronger." On the Caribbean Sea, the waves gradually calmed, fragments of metal mixing with the white foam. The USS Alburg stood in the vast expanse of the sea, but no one felt peaceful. They knew the black current operation was not over. In the distant horizon, a small light appeared. The Poseidon satellite had just detected the Note 2 signal deep in the Gulf of Panama. Halloran clenched his hand, saying softly, "Very well, we will see this through. Black current was never just an operation. It is an oath." Finally, Global Network Information Station. The Panamanian sea wind blew against the ship, carrying the heavy scent of salt and moisture, covering the deck of the USS Alburg with a thin layer of dew. After the battle in Honduras, everyone on the ship thought the hell had closed, but the last data recovered from the underground explosion revealed a different reality. The line, Note 2 online, was not just a warning signal, it was a coordinate, a challenge from the very heart of the Orion Cell operation. The new target was in the Gulf of Panama, an area loosely controlled by local defense forces, where any U.S. military action could trigger an international crisis. Halloran understood this, but he also knew that if Note 2 were allowed to operate, the entire logistics system of the cartels across South America would be revived within months, and the sea would once again be soaked in blood. In the command room, red lights signaled combat readiness. The 3D map displayed a 30 nautical mile area featuring natural coral reefs and narrow coves, ideal places to hide submarines or floating bases. Data from the Poseidon satellite showed a strange electromagnetic signal in the central area, low frequency, with a regular oscillation cycle like a heartbeat. Radar engineer Marshall said, a form of energy generator combined with a satellite communication relay. If we destroy it, the entire Orion network will be paralyzed. Halloran nodded, his eyes shining in the darkness. Good, but this time we don't just need to shoot, we need to understand what they are doing. Send SEAL Team Bravo in first. Gather data. We will only attack upon confirmation. 3 rigid Raider speedboats left the ship's deck, gliding silently like dark shadows over the water. The wind was strong, the waves high, but the special forces maintained a perfect V formation. Above them, the MQ-9 Reaper circled, performing surveillance, its infrared camera continuously scanning. When they were 3 nautical miles from the shore, they saw dim lights in the distance, low concrete buildings hidden beneath rocky cliffs. Through the optical sight, armed guards, military trucks, and most surprisingly, a huge antenna slowly rotating on the hilltop could be seen. Sergeant Vega whispered over the radio, "The base is highly operational, likely transmitting satellite signals." Bravo team leader replied, "Approach silently, do not fire without orders." Meanwhile, on the Alburg, Halloran and O'Connor glued their eyes to the screen. The signals from the UAV began to jam. O'Connor frowned. "They have an active jamming system. We are losing the image." Halloran ordered, "Activate optical communication mode. Maintain connection with encrypted laser." A thin blue beam of light shone from the UAV down to the shore, connecting directly to the SEAL team's receiving device. The signal stabilized. Data was transmitted directly to the center. The first scan showed that inside the mountain was a vast tunnel network. At the center was a round control room with a thick steel roof, over 60 meters in diameter. High infrared temperatures confirmed that the electronic system was operational. Vega sighed softly. "We found the heart of the monster." Just then, a small explosion sounded to the south. A red flare tore through the dark night. "They found us." "Bravo," one shouted. Tracer rounds slashed across the sky. The whole team rushed into the tunnel entrance, taking cover behind large rocks. In the air, the Reaper UAV gained altitude, shining its camera down. The image was clear. Over 20 armed soldiers poured out of the base, carrying rifles and RPGs. Halloran immediately spoke over the radio. "Bravo, retreat 300 meters west, we will provide cover." He turned to O'Connor. "Prepare the 127mm naval gun. Lock coordinates based on UAV data. Fire the first warning salvo, 12-degree angle." The explosion echoed. Columns of water rose, engulfing part of the pier. The Orion soldiers scattered, some running, others continuing to fire desperately. Bravo took the opportunity, entering the tunnel entrance. Flashlights swept across the walls. On the oil-stained concrete floor, strange characters were painted in red. Orion Note 2 stay online. In the middle of the room, a control panel was still lit, displaying dozens of code lines. Sergeant Vega plugged in a mobile decoding device, backing up the data. The screen showed the line, "Signal relay 67% uplinking to Saturday." Vega spoke quickly over the radio. "They are transmitting data to the satellite. We must cut it off immediately." Halloran replied, "Reaper lock onto the central target. Prepare Hellfire. Wait for my command." But as soon as he spoke, the signal from the UAV vanished. The screen went black. The whole ship fell silent for a few seconds. Then the warning system sounded. Detected reverse guidance signal. UAV hijacked. O'Connor yelled, "They are hacking the Reaper." Halloran slammed his hand onto the control panel. Cut all network connections. Switched to manual control, but it was too late. A streak of light flashed in the sky. The Reaper was forced to launch a Hellfire missile, not at the base, but towards the Alburg. In that instant, time seemed to stop. Halloran screamed. Phalanx defense system opened fire. The automated cannon roared. Hundreds of high-velocity rounds formed a steel wall in mid-air. The Hellfire missile exploded in the space, the blinding white light making the entire ship's deck shake. Burning debris fell into the sea, smoke billowing. O'Connor gasped, sweat soaking him. That was close. Halloran cut him off. It wasn't close. This is electronic warfare. They have touched our weapon control technology. On the ground, Bravo was still fighting. The tunnel entrance exploded, smoke pouring out. The last remnants of Orion fought fiercely, but could not stop the advance of the American Special Forces. In the central control room, Vega accessed the server panel, plugging in the decoding device. Code lines appeared, and then an automated voice boomed from the loudspeaker. The voice, in a cold, metallic English mixed with Spanish, said, "You think you have won. Note 3 is ready. The sea will awaken again." Simultaneously, a countdown clock lit up on the screen. 20. Vega screamed over the radio. They set a self-destruct bomb. 19 seconds. Halloran yelled, "Evacuate immediately." Bravo retreated, rushing out of the tunnel. The ground shook. A gigantic fireball consumed the side of the mountain. Shockwaves swept the coast, throwing rocks like rain. From the ship, Halloran saw the flames soaring hundreds of meters high. He knew Bravo could not all escape. The sea surged, black smoke billowed, mixed with the sound of the alarm. Over the radio, only static, then a faint voice rang out. Vega transmitted data. "Cutting contact. Sir." Then, complete silence. Halloran gripped the handrail, his eyes heavy. He said nothing, only looked towards the bay where the fire still raged. A long silence ensued until O'Connor approached, his voice hoarse. "Sir, Southcom confirms the uplink signal has stopped. Note 2 is completely destroyed. Bravo is a total loss." Halloran did not reply. He removed his cap, placed it on the control panel, and said softly, loud enough for the whole room to hear, they did what they had to do. He ordered, "Send a message to the entire fleet, lower the flag to half-mast, and set course for return." The ship turned its bow, cutting through the waves, leaving behind a thick wall of smoke. In the hearts of every sailor, a heavy silence spread. Not from fear, but from pain mixed with pride. 3 hours later, the sea returned to calm. News from Southcom arrived. The data recovered by Vega shows that Note 3 is not a military base, but an underground financial system disguised as an electronic exchange in Singapore, where Orion Cell launders billions of US dollars from narcotics and weapons. Halloran read the news, folding the device. So the sea was only the beginning. He said, "The war has moved beyond the water." O'Connor looked at him, softly asking, "What do we do next?" Halloran turned, his eyes looking out at the vast ocean. "Continue, because when the sea is silent, the enemy will come ashore. And our mission is to remind the world that justice does not only exist on land." The Panamanian sky gradually brightened. The first rays of sun shone through the hazy smoke, casting pale golden streaks onto the ship's deck. The American flag still fluttered fiercely in the wind, soaked with dew and smoke, yet standing firm. The USS Alburg quietly left the dead water, heading far out to sea. Behind it, the Gulf of Panama still smoldered, but ahead, the dawn was breaking. Like a promise that every sacrifice had meaning. Over the radio, Halloran's voice was even, strong, yet somber. "Operation Black Current, 7 complete. The heroes of Bravo Team will not be forgotten. The sea is never silent, and neither is justice." The ship continued, gliding through the deep blue water, carrying the memory of the soldiers who had fallen. From above, the Poseidon satellite captured the final image, a long white streak against the vast blue background, the trace of a journey that history would always remember. Black Current 7 concluded, but its waves still echoed in the hearts of those who believe that justice, even in the middle of the ocean, has its own voice.